everyone and welcome to Emma Bowden Art, and in today's tutorial we are going to be drawing these cat eyes. Now this is an eye study, so you can get practicing drawing the eyes, the shape and obviously all the veining and stuff that come within the eyes. Over the next few weeks we're actually going to be doing some more eye studies, so keep your eyes open for these ones. So we're going to be doing a chameleon eye. I thought that was a little bit more adventurous for people. And then we're going to be doing some dog eyes as well. So yes, keep your eyes open for that. But in the meantime, have a look in the description and see what pencils we've used and what tools we're going to be using to create this beautiful eye study. Happy drawing, guys. Okay then, so let's get to it, and we're using pencil 103, which is an ivory colour. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this down as the base colour, because if we go straight in with a green, it's going to be too vibrant. So if we put this down first, what will happen when we put our green over the top is it will dull it down a little bit, okay? So we're just going to pop this over where you can see all the green, okay? So we're not going to be going over the pupil, and we're not going to be going over the highlight in the eye either, okay? It's just a medium pressure. I'm not putting too much down because there will be many layers going on top of this. And then I think what I do is, yeah, there we go. So I get my Tombow Mono eraser and I just erase out all those graphite marks, okay? You might want to actually do this using pastel if you're freehanding it, but because I actually use the graphite method, so I rubbed graphite on the back of the picture, put it down and then traced over the top, and what's happened is it's transferred all that graphite onto my paper. And that's how I've transferred it. I haven't used the grid method because it's literally just the eyes and the nose. We don't have to be precise either because we're just practicing how to use the colours and get all the veins in the eyes and stuff like that. And then I've just gone ahead and I've used the black pencil just to put in that pupil there. And now I've just got the paper blender and I'm just going to blend that ivory out, making sure not to go over those graphite marks because you will drag the graphite in to the pastel, and we don't want to do that. We will rub out as we go. Okay, so staying with pencil 199, and what we're going to do is we're going to go around the iris area. I'm not too bothered about rubbing out the graphite because this is a dark colour anyway, so it doesn't matter if it actually gets kind of muddled together. That's not a problem. The only time we need to worry really is if you're going over it with the light colours, okay? So yeah, if you just go round with a nice sharp pencil and just plot in the darker area around the iris. Now we're going to use pencil 181, which is a dark grey. And we're going to plot in that shadowed area right at the top of the iris and the top of the eye. If you've gone up to the top of the iris with your ivory, don't worry, just go straight over the top. I did leave a little bit of a space for this, so it's a little bit more intense, but it doesn't matter if you go over your ivory, okay? So we will be blending this out anyway. So just put some down and then we're going to use our paper blender just to blend it all together. Okay, so we've got our paper blender again, and we've well, I've wiped it off on a microfiber cloth just to get a little bit of that ivory off, but it doesn't matter. If you've got a darker colour on there, then make sure you give it a nice wipe. Now, using the paper blender, make sure that you're doing small circles, okay, so it blends nice. If you're doing like lines or anything like that, then it's going to look really streaky. So make sure that you're just doing like a small circular motion. Okay, the only time I'll use it in a straight line is when I'm trying to blend fur and I'm blending it in the direction of the fur. Okay, and I'm just bringing it down into the ivory area just to blend it in. Okay, just make sure that you don't go over that highlighted area there, because we will be putting in some white and some blues in that area. So now we're going to pencil 170, which is this lovely green. And it might look a little bit intense at first, but we will be putting some more ivory on just to dull it down, and some yellows. Okay, just getting rid of that little bit of splodge of black there. So yeah, go ahead and put this all over, bearing in mind not to go into that highlight. Okay, so I've got my paper blender. I'm just giving it a little bit of wipe just to get rid of that dark grey, but it doesn't really matter, to be honest, because we're going to be going over it like we're doing now. And we're just going to blend it all out together, okay? It doesn't matter if there's some odd colours in there where you've dragged the grey into the green. That doesn't really matter, because it all adds to the texture and the look of the eye. Again, just doing small circular motions and just trying to blend it all together. Going to pencil 184 now, and we're going to apply this all over the green, and this is what will give it that lovely yellowy green feel, okay? Because that green, as I said, it is a little bit intense, but this will just dull it down a little bit, and then obviously add some of those lovely golden tones. And then again, I'm going to use my paper blender, and I'm just going to blend it all together. Moving on to pencil 140. Now if you look closely around the pupil of this cat's eye, you can actually see that it's quite a little bit of a bluey green, okay? So we're just going to pop some of that in, not all the way to the edge, but literally just around the pupil, okay? And then we're going to be blending it out again with our paper blender. Now make sure you don't put too much of this blue down, okay? Because it can get quite dark, this blue can. Okay, I've just smudged a little bit of my pupil into there, but it doesn't really matter, because we will be putting in quite a bit more shadow around that pupil on that right hand eye. And remember anyway, guys, that mistakes, especially with pastels, can be corrected. You can always go over it with another colour. I could easily have gone back over that with the blue and just blended it back out. They're really forgiving, pastels are. Now I'm just erasing some of that graphite in that catch light area, because we are going to be doing that one next. So using the same blue, which is the 140, and we're going to apply just a little bit of that right in the middle of that catch light, because if you look closely you can just see a little bit of a blue reflection in there. Okay, and then the tips are white, so the left hand side and the right hand side of that blue is white, but we will be going over that blue with the white anyway, because it's, like I said, it's quite a strong colour, so we will dull it down with the white. So definitely make sure that you use a clean pencil blender here, guys, because we are going over the white and we don't want to muddy our colours. Okay, and I've literally just blended it in just a tiny amount, just to push some of that pastel into the paper. Okay, and then I've just got my green again, and I'm literally just putting in a bit of a jaggedy area, because if you look at the highlight in that cat's eye, it's not a straight line, it's got some edges in. Okay, so we're going back to the ivory, which is pencil 103, and using like a circular motion, we're just going to put some of that texture in at the bottom, where you can see it's lighter. Okay, so where the light is hitting the eye, we're just going to pop some of that in. So there you can see, okay, that I'm just using like a circular motion just to add some of that texture in. And then we're going to clean off our paper blender, and I'm literally just going to rub it in to that green. And you can already see now, just by adding some light at the bottom and some shadows at the top, that this eye is already starting to get some dimension to it. Now we're going to go back to pencil 184. Okay guys, you don't have to use this pencil, because I do end up going over it with pencil 182 in a bit. So if you look closely at the eye in the reference photo, you'll see that there's some golden markings. Okay, so all I'm doing is I'm just putting in some small kind of circular dots in the eye, I suppose. This doesn't have to be perfect, okay? You could put them wherever you want. It doesn't have to be exactly the same as the reference photo. Okay, so I'm going to pencil 182 now, and this is more of a browny yellow, which gives it that nice golden tone. So what I'm doing now is I'm just going over that yellow, because it was just too yellow. It didn't have that nice golden feel to it. And with a clean paper blender, instead of rubbing it into the eye, I'm dabbing it into the eye, because I don't want to lose that colour, because once you start blending it, it dulls down the colour. Okay, so all we're doing is we're just pushing it into the paper. So staying with pencil 182, we're going to make sure it's really sharp, okay? And if you look closely, you'll see some golden veining in the eye there. So I'm literally just putting in some squiggly lines, make sure it's not straight, try and make it a little bit more jaggedy so that it looks realistic, okay? And then we're going to put some little lines, joining all the little lines up, maybe some little dots, just to add in some of that texture. Again, as before, it doesn't need to be perfect. You can make this bit up if you want. So I'm just jumping in with pencil 190 now. It's like a little bit of a salmony kind of colour, because there is a red vein on the left hand side running down. So I just wanted to pop that in as well, very lightly, make sure it's nice and sharpened, and then we're just basically just going to dab it into the eye as you've just seen there. And then we're carrying on with pencil 182. Okay, just going over the line just to dull it down just that little bit. But then we're going to carry on with our veining. So we're going to be using pencil 187. I'm just going to place a little bit of this where you can see a lot of that kind of orangey rusty kind of colour there in the top right of the eye, and we're just going to use it very, very sparingly. Moving on to pencil 233 now, and we're just going to add just a few little veins here and there, and then some kind of there we go, just some colour splodges. I don't really know what to call them. Because if you look closely, you'll see that there's some bluey grey tones. You know where we placed all the blue. We're just going to add some of this grey now, just to kind of enhance that blue. Then, as we normally do with our paper blender, once we've applied a colour, we're just going to push it into the paper with like a dabbing motion. Going back to our ivory pencil, the 103, and we're just going to place this again where we placed it the last time, just to bring it up that little bit more brighter, because as we apply other colours, we tend to look and think, oh, that bit needs adjusting and this bit needs adjusting. Okay, so this light bit at the bottom needs adjusting, and you can tell now that it's starting to look a little bit more 3D. And as normal, we're just going to push it into the paper. So back to pencil 181, this nice grey, and we're going to apply this at the top of the iris where we did before, you know, where we put all that shadow in. So we're just going to reapply that. Okay, and then once we're done, we're going to blend it out as we did before, and then you'll start to see this eye really taking shape, because now we've got those lights in and we're putting in these darks. You'll really start to see the contrast coming into the eye. So back to pencil 103, and again we're going to be applying this light area right at the bottom, because now we've put that shadow in, we can see that it doesn't look balanced. Okay, so that shadowy area has taken away the brightness of the lighter area at the bottom. Okay, so we're just going to pop that back in, and as normal we're just going to dab it and push it down into the paper. Going back to pencil 182, this nice golden colour, and we're just going to apply that again where the golden areas are. As I mentioned earlier, once we adjust one thing or apply a new colour, some of the other colours need adjusting, okay, just to bring it up so it's all kind of even. Then as normal, we're just going to use the paper blender just to push it down into the paper. Okay, we're moving to pencil 199, which is the black. And we're just going to pop a little bit in the corner of the eye there. And we're going to darken off the pupil and then also the bottom of the iris, which is what I'm doing now. Okay, and that'll just give it a little bit more of contrast, and it would just make it just pop, and it makes it look as if the eye is sitting in something. I think the word I'm trying to look for is depth. Literally, it was there, but it just wasn't coming out. So yeah, adding that black gives it some depth. Okay, and then we're just going to go over it with the paper blender. So we're going to use our eraser now. This is a Tombow mono eraser. Okay, so it's a precision eraser. You can use any eraser you want, doesn't have to be that one. Okay, and then I'm just using a brush just to get rid of that dust. And then we're going to be moving on to pencil 190. Now it might look a little bit dark for this waterline, and it is dark. Okay, so use it sparingly, but we will be going over it with our ivory, which is 103, and we're just going to lighten it off. Okay, so pastels, they're a little bit like paints, you can mix them. All right, so if you've got something that's a little bit too dark, then just add a lighter colour on the top, and vice versa. Okay, so I didn't have the correct colour for this waterline, which is why I'm mixing the colours. But if you have that colour, then go ahead, put it in. Then as always, we're going to blend it out with a nice clean paper blender. Okay, so now we're going to be moving on to the fur, and we're going to be using pencil 187. I'm going to be applying this wherever you can see some of this orange fur. And I'm not thinking about like fur direction or anything at the moment. I'm literally just putting it as if I'm colouring in a picture. Okay, and I'm just going to pop that in. I'm not pressing too hard, okay, because we don't want to be filling up the top of the paper, because we will be putting on quite a few layers to this. So I will be speeding this up at some point, but I just want to show you how I'm putting this underlayer down. That's what we call it, an underlayer. Okay, so it's more like it's got a bit of a painterly kind of feel to it once we've applied it and we've blended it all out. Okay, so if you just follow along and do that, I'm only going to be putting in a section underneath the eye for now. Normally I would use this colour all over, but for the purpose of this video, I thought I'd do a section at a time. So I've moved on to pencil 103, which is the ivory, and I'm just going to apply that where we can see all the lighter fur. Now I do swap and change my pencils quite often. I don't know why. I don't know if I just get bored of a colour, but I do kind of move from section to section. You will find your own way of doing this, but basically just put the orange where the orange is and the ivory where the lighter fur is. So you can see here that it's a mixture of the both. Okay, so it's not really orange and it's not really ivory, and the same here. Okay, so I applied a little bit of that orangey colour. Now I'm just going over it with the ivory. So basically when we blend it out, we will be there we go, just going back over with the orange. When it's blended out, it will be a mixture of the two colours. Moving on to pencil 177 now, and this is a nice brown colour. And where I'm going to apply it now, you can see in the reference photo, that's where the shadow falls on this cat's face. Okay, so there's not really a lot of detail in this area. So we're just going to apply that, and I'm not pressing too hard because you can still see the paper coming through. And we're going to be bringing it onto the orange as well, all right, because it's a mixture of orange and browns. Moving on to pencil 181 now, and this is a nice dark grey, and we're just going to use this just to plot in those shadows underneath the cat's nose. Okay then, so what I'm going to do, and hopefully that you can understand what it is that we're doing. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to speed this video up a little bit now. Okay, it's not going to be too fast, but basically I'm going to be swapping between my pencils, so the orange, the brown and the ivory. Okay, and I'm just going to plot those colours where I can see them in the reference photo. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. If you need to go over colours, then go over colours. If you need to mix them, that's totally fine. Okay, and we're just going to build this up, and then I'll come back to you in a short while. Okay, so we're going to use a nice clean paper blender and we're going to blend this all out. Okay, and I'm just using circular motions and I'm just blending it all together. Now, what'll help is, or what we're trying to achieve, shall I say, is if you look at your reference photo and you squint your eyes, okay, and then you look back at your drawing and you can see if the colour matches, right? And this will bring up everything without those details on the top. So what I mean by that is we're trying to eliminate all that fur texture by squinting our eyes, and that will leave us with the actual colour underneath. Okay, so because it's the underpainting, it's the colour that's under the fur, if that makes sense, and that's what we're trying to achieve. Okay, so now we've blended it out, we're going to be going back over with the same colours, but we're going to be putting it on in the fur direction. Okay, so if you keep looking backwards and forwards at your reference photo, you'll see the direction of the fur. So it's just a little bit more precise, and I will be introducing another colour into the mix as well. Okay, so this is pencil 182, and I'm just going to apply this where I can see some of those golden tones. Okay, and it's also going to be applied in the fur direction. Just going back to our ivory, and we're going to do exactly the same with this pencil. Then as always, we're just going to use our paper blender just to blend everything out, but this time we're going to be blending in the direction of that fur. Okay, so I'm just going to carry on with my brown, my orange and my ivory, and I'm just going to carry on with this underpainting. Okay, so ignore me on the left with my finger and the reference photo. It's just how I work, okay? It doesn't mean anything. So if you just carry on applying those all the way down the nose and the front of the face. So we're going to start on the nose now, and I'm just rubbing away that graphite line that's at the top because we've got a nice light colour above this line, and then we've obviously got like a nice pinky orangey kind of colour underneath. So the colour isn't that dark that it'll go over that graphite line. So if you just brush it all the dust away. And then we're going to be moving on to pencil 189, and we're just going to apply some of that, and then we're actually going to be applying some ivory over the top, okay, because it's not really like too pink, it's more of like an orangey pink. So you can see now that we've applied that ivory how light it's gone. Okay, so we're going to be moving on to a nice orange colour, which is pencil 187. And we're just going to apply that into there as well because it's not exactly pink, it's a nice orangey pink. So I'm just going to apply some of that ivory above the nose itself, and then we're going to be blending everything all out. So I'm just going to pop some more of this ivory down just above the nose, okay, and then we're going to be adding pencil 190 over the top because it's a nice kind of pinky fleshy colour. If you squint your eyes, it's a different colour to everything else. I'm just going to add a little bit more ivory over the top because I just felt it was a little bit too pink. It's up to you, it's your drawing. You can do whatever colours you want. You can make this bright pink if you want. Changing to pencil 182, and we're just going to be applying this where you can see some of those nice golden shadows in the nose. Okay, so we're going to be creating shape with that one. Going back to pencil 190 now, and I'm just going to put in some of those markings that you can see on the nose. Then we're going to use pencil 189 and we're just going to pop this all over and kind of use it to blend everything out. Okay, so with our pencil 187, I'm just going to bring that area down a little bit because it looked a little bit too high. Okay, so there we go, it looks a lot better now. And I'm going to carry on with this pencil. I'm going to create some fur marks just as we did on the right hand side underneath the eye. And then we're going to blend it all out. We're going to use all of our pencils again, so our brown, our orange and our ivory. Just making those fur markings, and make note of the length of the fur on the nose, okay, because it's a lot shorter than it is on the cheek underneath the eye. Okay, so if you have a look at the fur on the nose here, you can see that it's got a slight brown colour to it, which is why I'm putting it over that ivory and over the orange as well. And then again, once we've done that, we're going to use our paper blender and we're just going to blend everything out in the direction of the fur. So we're moving on to the left eye now, and I won't be talking you through it. I want you to be able to do this one by yourself. And remember, we're going to be putting down the underlayer, so some ivory, then we're going to be putting the green on the top, then some yellow. If you need to go back to the beginning to look at the process on how we did the right hand eye, then go ahead and do that. You can pause it, you can speed it up, you can do whatever you want, and then what we'll do is we'll come back. Now I have sped the video up obviously because the eye can take up to, I think it was about 15 minutes, and I don't want you getting bored, so I've sped it up, but it's not that fast that you can't follow along, okay, as you can see. So it just cuts down all the time, and obviously the size of the actual video. Okay, so hopefully you've completed that, and we're just going to go over and we're just going to do that waterline. So if you remember, we used the pinky colour and then we put the ivory over the top just to kind of knock that pinkiness back a little bit. Remember to rub out your graphite lines as well. Now the waterline on this eye actually goes over the top as well, just a little bit, so bear that in mind. I'm just going round the edge as we did on the other eye with the 199, which is the black. So we're going to start on the underlayer again. Hopefully you remember what we did before. We're just going to apply the orange, the brown and the ivory, and maybe some of that golden colour as well. Now there won't be so much brown on this side of the face because this is the side of the face that's in light. Okay, so the light's coming from the left. So it's going to be a little bit more orangey with a little bit of brown, but not much because it's not in shadow. So we're just going to apply this and then we will be blending it all out. Okay, so now we've done that under layer, we're going to go and do the second layer, which is putting in all these fur markings. Okay, exactly the same as what we did on the other side of the face, and then we'll blend it all out. So I'm just applying some short hair markings here on the bridge of the nose, because you can actually see that there's quite a lot of ivory in that area. Okay, so if you just apply some as well, just be mindful that obviously it's only in the middle of the nose, it's not all the way down, and it's short hair. So I've just got my paper blender there. I've made sure I've given it a nice clean, and I'm going to blend everything out, making sure that I'm blending in the direction of that fur. Okay, so now we're going to be going back over again, but we're going to be even more precise now with our fur markings. Okay, so constantly looking every few strokes at your reference photo, just to double check that you're putting the hair in the right direction and that it's the right length, it's the right kind of texture. So if you see that maybe there could be some curly hairs, I'm not saying in this picture, but for anything else that you do, there could be like a curly hair or a stray hair somewhere. Now this doesn't have to be like too precise. Even with the colours, you can see that my colours are just slightly off. That doesn't matter, because it's more about the values and the tones that make a picture. I mean, I could do this cat in bright pinks and reds and it would still look like a cat, as long as I get that 3D feel to it, which is obviously done by tones, values and contrast. Okay, so it doesn't have to be precise. It's your drawing after all. You can do it exactly how you want, but this is just the technique that I use. I normally put my finger on the reference photo, so as I'm looking backwards and forwards every few strokes, I don't lose where I am. Okay, so my eye will go straight to the tip of my finger, otherwise it's going to take me forever because I'll be lost at where I am. Obviously we're going to be changing colours. There's a lot of this ivory pencil that's going to be going down, because you can pretty much see all the highlights where the light's hitting the fur. It's quite light, so we will be using this. So as I'm doing now, you can see that I'm putting some of this fur on top of the dark area, because in the reference photo you can actually see the fur on the top. And I'm going to do this all over. I will speed it up, okay, because hopefully you're concentrating on your own drawing, so you don't really need to see exactly what I'm doing. And then what we'll do is we will use the paper blender, okay, to blend it out, but we're not going to be pressing it too hard into the paper, okay, because we don't want it to be too blurry. Okay, so I've just sped the video up, and it was initially 23 minutes to put all this fur on. So I've cut it down to about 10 minutes. Now it's up to you. You can either skip this part, watch it, see exactly what I'm doing. It's totally up to you. But I have sped it up, and it is about 10 minutes until we use the paper blender. Okay, so hopefully you're used to this stage now. We've used the paper blender many times. So we're going to clean it off, and we're going to be literally just going over the fur, but in a fur kind of way. Okay, so we're not kind of smudging it backwards and forwards like we were before. We're literally just pressing it at the root of the fur and then sliding it down against the fur to the tip and then bringing it back up off the paper again, just as if we were doing fur details. So it's a little bit more precise. Okay, you can see there, just added a little bit of grey just to make that little bit of a shadow underneath that left nostril a little bit more pronounced, because I think I must have lost it or rubbed it off or something like that. But yeah, so there you go. I'm literally using the paper blender and I'm just going through this whole picture now. Using pencil 192, we're just going to put back all that texture that's in the nose. Okay, so all those darker kind of pinky red bits that you can see. Using pencil 181 now, we're just going to re-establish that shadow that's underneath that nostril. And then we're going to use our paper blender just to blend out the nose, okay? Not the shadow, just the nose. Using our ivory, which is pencil 103, we're just going to establish some of those lights that are in the nose now, okay? And this is, again, what will give the 3D look to this nose. And then we're going to use a clean paper blender just to blend that out. We're using our black now, which is pencil 199. You might feel a bit more confident using pencil 181, which is the darker grey, because we're going to be putting a shadow now on this top of the eye of this iris. What I'm doing now is like a medium pressure, all right, and then as I bring it down in a bit, I'll be taking the pressure off the pencil and holding it a bit more further back, so I'm not pressing as hard. I'm just applying texture here to this waterline first. Okay, so you can actually see now that I'm holding my pencil a little bit more further back. Sorry, I was recording doing this little bit. And I'm using small circular motion very, very lightly on the pencil, okay? Because we don't want it like black because it won't look natural, okay? So you can see that it's quite transparent on your reference photo. All right, and I'm just bringing it down, just very, very lightly. As always, paper blender time, and I'm just going to do small circular motion and just feather that all into that green, okay? Just be careful, obviously, of your highlight. So I'm using some of that pastel dust that's on the end of the pencil blender now, and I'm just going to add some marks and some texture to the iris. So you can see some kind of grey veining and some grey dots, and I'm just going to pop those in just to make it look more realistic. Just going back to pencil 192, and I'm just going to re-establish that veining that's in the eye on that one side. I'm going to go back to our white, which is pencil 101, and we're just going to put a little bit of this white in the highlight, so on the left hand side and the right hand side, okay? I'm going to keep the middle of it free because we will be putting pencil 140 in that area in a minute. So here we go, pencil 140, we're just going to put a little bit of that in the middle. If you find it's a little bit too bright, you can always go over with your white pencil. Pencil 101 now, which is our white, and we're just going to put a little bit of a highlight there on the right hand side, and that just adds to that glossy, glassy kind of feel of the eye, okay? And then we're just going to use our paper blender, we're just going to dab it down if you feel it's a little bit too bright. Moving on to pencil 186 now, we're just going to plot some more of this orange fur, okay? Just go over making fur marks as we did before, and do this all over your picture where you can see all that orange. Moving on to pencil 199, which is our black, and we're going to re-establish the pupil in the left-hand eye and the black around the edge of the iris. Okay, so basically just the shape of the eye. Mine's a little bit wonky, so I'm just straightening up the curvature of the eye here. Now my hand is in the way of your view, so I'm really sorry about that. It's just the way I suppose I hold my pencil, or yeah. So if you just go ahead and do that, and then we'll move on to the next bit. Pencil 181 here. We did use this in this eye to create that shadow, didn't we, earlier? But obviously as we add tones and colours and values and all that, you kind of lose it. So we're just putting it back in very lightly, because there's hardly much of a shadow, to be honest, in this eye. And then we're just going to blend it out as we're doing now. So we're going to go and do exactly what we did with the other eye, and that's to leave the dust on the end of the paper blender, and we're going to use that to create some texture in that eye. Pencil 192, and we're just going to plot in that red vein again that's on the edge of that shadow. Pencil 103 now, so back to our ivory, and there is a little tiny line going in the corner of the eye, so we're just going to plot that in there. If you think it's too bright, you can always dab it down with your paper blender. Pencil 101, and we're just going to do the same with this highlight. We're just going to dab it on the left hand side and on the right hand side where it's a lot brighter, and then we'll use our pencil 140 just to put a little bit in the middle and on the top of the pupil. So we're going to use pencil 183 now, and this is like a lovely golden yellow colour, and we're going to pop this all over because we are lacking some of those golden colours. Use it very sparingly in the lighter areas, such as your ivory, which is what I'm doing there. And then we're just going to use like our flicking motion again, so we're creating fur. Moving on to our paper blender now. Now what I want you to do is have a look at your reference photo, and you can see that the side of this cat's face is out of focus. Right, so what we're going to do is we're going to blur that part of the face using the paper blender. All right, so be careful with this bit, it is a little bit tricky. It's literally just the left hand side and the right hand side, and I think we're going to blend out a little bit of that nose as well, and make sure that you're blending in the direction of that fur. So going back to our ivory pencil, which is 103, I have popped this in a pencil extender if anyone is interested in what they're called. And we're going to be adding our fur back all over, but only in the areas that we've remained sharp. Okay, it is looking a little bit weird at the moment, but it'll all come together when we've done this last layer. We're just going to be plotting this in, being careful and mindful of obviously the fur length and the direction of the fur. So on this area of the nose, what I'm doing is I'm just literally just dabbing the pencil onto the surface. I'm not actually making fur marks because the fur is that short. You can hardly see that there's any length to the fur at all. So if you just dab it on, and then you can just dab it with your finger if you think it's a little bit too bright, or you can use your paper blender. And that's it, guys, your picture is complete. So here's my finished result. I did actually put a little bit of white on the black of the eyes underneath the iris, so you can see a little bit of the white there. I've literally just dotted it on, but other than that, yeah, so that's it complete. I really hope that you've had fun doing this and that you've actually learned something. Please, 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 um, put your pictures on Facebook, share them with me. I want to see exactly what it is that you've drawn. I love seeing people's drawings after they finished a tutorial. So yeah, that's it for now. I will be releasing some more eye studies. We're going to be doing a chameleon eye, and we're also going to be doing some dog eyes, because obviously I know that cats and dogs are primarily what people like to draw. But I thought I'd throw an unusual one in there in the mix. But yeah, so please tag me, and I shall see you soon, and happy drawing.